The alarm had been silent for 500,000 years. Now it screamed. Dr. Nathan Price stood in the deep darkness of the Arctic facility, watching red lights blink across the ancient control panel. His hand trembled as he read the data on the screen. The Galactic Council fleet was coming. 30,000 ships. They would reach Earth space in 48 hours. The facility hummed around him, a place so old that humans had forgotten it even existed. Nathan was one of only 12 people who knew the truth. Humanity had not died when the Galactic Council destroyed Earth. They had hidden. They had planned. And they had left behind something that the universe would never expect. Nathan walked deeper into the facility, past rows of sleeping chambers that stretched into darkness. Each chamber held a war beast. Each beast was humanity's final answer to the question that had haunted them for 200,000 years. How do you survive in a universe that wants you dead? The beasts had been created long ago, before the Council destroyed Earth. Human scientists had engineered them from human DNA, mixing in traits from Earth's most dangerous creatures. They were faster than any alien race, smarter than any animal, stronger than any soldier, and they had human minds inside those monstrous bodies. They could think. They could plan. They could choose. Nathan stopped at chamber number 1. The creature inside was massive, easily 2 meters tall, even while lying down. Its skin was dark gray, covered in natural armor. Its claws were as long as a human hand. Its teeth were like daggers. But its eyes, even in sleep, showed intelligence. Those were human eyes. There were 5,000 chambers like this one. 5,000 war beasts. The last gift from old Earth to its children, scattered across the galaxy. Nathan pressed his hand against the cold glass. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am so sorry to wake you." The communication system buzzed. Nathan turned and walked back to the control room. There was a video screen showing Captain Sarah Mitchell's face. She commanded the civilian defense fleet, the only military force that humanity had been able to build in secret. Her face was pale. "How long do we have?" she asked. 48 hours, Nathan said. "Maybe less." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they held a terrible certainty. "If we do this, there is no going back. Once the beasts are awake, the Council will know we survived. They will hunt us across the entire galaxy." "They are hunting us anyway," Nathan said. "We are already dead. The only question is whether we die alone or we fight." There was silence on the communication line. Nathan could hear the hum of the ship around Sarah. Thousands of humans depended on her. Thousands of humans who had been born in hiding, who had never seen Earth, who had only heard stories of a planet that the Galactic Council had burned. "Wake them," Sarah said finally. "Wake them all." Nathan's hands moved across the control panel. He had trained for this moment his entire life, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of what he was about to do. He typed in the activation code. The ancient computers came alive, systems that had slept for 500,000 years, beginning to move again. Deep beneath the ice, in chambers that stretched for kilometers, the suspension pods began to glow. Lights turned on in the darkness. Needles slowly removed themselves from metal arms. Liquid drained from chambers. The war beasts began to wake. Nathan watched on the monitors as one by one, the creatures opened their eyes. Some thrashed against their chambers. Some lay still, confused. Some pressed their claws against the glass, testing their strength, discovering what they had become. The first chamber door opened. The massive creature stumbled forward, its body learning to move again. It roared, a sound that made the whole facility shake. The roar was not rage. It was confusion. It was pain. It was a creature realizing it had been born into a war it did not choose. More doors opened. More beasts stepped into the world. Some were smaller, barely 2 meters. Some were giants, nearly 3 meters tall with muscles that could tear steel. Their skin ranged from gray to black to a sickly green. Their teeth and claws varied. Their eyes were all the same, though. They all held that spark of human intelligence, trapped in animal flesh. Nathan watched them wake. He watched them discover themselves. He watched them slowly realize that they were not alone, that there were others like them, that they were part of something vast and terrible and alive. On the monitors, he could see more ships arriving at the other hidden bases around the galaxy. Thousands of war beasts were opening their eyes to a universe that had no idea they existed. Thousands of weapons were coming online. Thousands of human minds and inhuman bodies were learning to exist. A low growl came from the speaker system. One of the war beasts had found the communication interface. It was trying to talk, but its voice was wrong. The vocal cords were not made for human speech, but the creature kept trying. It made sounds that were almost words. It was trying to tell Nathan something. Nathan worked the controls and heard the words clearly through the translation program. Why? Why are we awake? What are we? Nathan closed his eyes. He thought of the old humans, the ones who had created these beasts. He thought of their fear. He thought of their hope that maybe, just maybe, they could save their species. Not through hiding forever, but through fighting with weapons the Council could never expect. You are human, Nathan said slowly. Your body is different, but you are human. You have human hearts, human minds, human souls. And I am waking you because the time for hiding is over. The war beast was silent for a long moment. We are soldiers? It finally asked. Yes, Nathan said. You are soldiers. And in 2 days, we need you to fight. The war beast roared again. This time, it was not confusion. It was a sound of acceptance. It was rage at finally understanding what it was meant to do. Around the facility, other beasts heard that roar and answered with their own. The sound grew louder and louder, 5,000 voices crying out into the darkness. Nathan Price stood alone in the command center and heard the war beast sing. He knew that by morning, the Galactic Council would detect the energy signatures. They would know that something was wrong. They would accelerate their approach. They would come looking for what had awakened in the dark, and humanity would fight. Not with the weapons of the past, but with the weapons they had created for the future. Not with the old strength of their ancestors, but with new strength, born in the ice and rising up in the darkness. The war beasts had awoken. The old war was about to begin. The training center was built inside an asteroid hollowed out by ancient humans. Here, the war beasts learned what they were. Commander Lucas Hayes had been human once. Now, standing in the training room, he was something new. His body was massive and covered in thick gray skin that could stop projectiles. His hands had claws that could tear through ship metal. His teeth were designed to crush bone. But his mind was still human. It was still Lucas Hayes. He could still remember his mother's face. He could still feel fear. Around him, other beasts trained. They ran across the asteroid's surface, learning their strength. They practiced combat movements, discovering what their new bodies could do. Some were faster than others. Some were stronger. Some had skin that seemed to absorb damage better than others. Each war beast was unique, created from different human DNA and different animal combinations. A young beast named Cade approached Lucas. Cade was smaller than Lucas, barely 2 meters tall, with skin that shifted between gray and dark blue. But Cade was quick. When they fought, Cade could move like nothing Lucas had ever seen before. "Commander," Cade said. The voice was rough, hard to understand at first, but improving every day. "Will we really fight the Council?" "Yes," Lucas said. He did not lie to the beasts. They had been born into war. They deserved the truth. In 2 days, Cade looked down at his claws, turning them over in his massive hands. How many will die? Many, Lucas said. Maybe most of us. Cade did not speak again. He walked away, his heavy feet making the asteroid shake. Lucas watched him go and felt something crack inside his chest. These creatures had been alive for only a few hours, and already they understood death. The communication system activated. Captain Sarah Mitchell's face appeared on the screen, broadcasting from her flagship. She looked like she had not slept in days. "The Council fleet has accelerated," she said. "They will be here in 20 hours. All war beasts need to reach their combat positions." Lucas nodded. Around the asteroid, beasts stopped their training. They moved toward the transport ships with the kind of discipline that only humans could have. They were afraid, but they followed orders. They moved because they had to. They moved because they were soldiers. The transport ships lifted off, carrying war beasts toward the scattered human fleets. Lucas stood on the bridge of his own ship, the Vanguard, watching the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was coming. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. They believed themselves to be the center of all civilization. They had 3,000 member species, each one strong, each one intelligent, each one convinced that they were the most important civilization in the universe. When they had learned that humans existed, they had reacted with fear. When humans had built technology that rivaled their own, they had reacted with anger. When humans had refused to submit to Council law, they had reacted with genocide. The Council destroyed Earth 500,000 years ago. They sent a fleet of 10,000 ships and burned the planet until nothing remained. They had believed humanity was dead. They had moved on. They had forgotten the threat, but humans had learned to hide in the darkness between the stars. "Contact," a voice said from the radar station. "Multiple ships detected. Council identification codes confirmed." Lucas's hands became fists. His claws dug into the metal armrest of his chair, leaving deep scratches. Around the bridge, other war beasts tensed. The time had come. "All beasts, battle stations," Lucas commanded. His voice was rough but clear. "Weapons online. Shields up. Stay calm. Stay focused. We have faced harder things than this." It was a lie. They had never faced anything. They had only trained. But the lie was what soldiers needed to hear. The lie made them brave. The Council fleet appeared on the screens. There were thousands of ships. Massive battleships that were 5 kilometers long. Smaller fighters that moved in perfect formations. The Council did not have individual courage like humans did. They had discipline. They had numbers. They had technology that had been perfected across 1,000,000 years of war. The first shot came from a Council battleship. A beam of energy crossed the darkness and hit the Vanguard's shield. The ship shook. Alarms sounded. The war beasts did not panic. They had been built for this. "Return fire," Lucas said quietly. The weapon systems came alive. Missiles launched from the Vanguard. They were old human designs, created 500,000 years ago, but still deadly. The missiles crossed space and hit a smaller Council ship. The explosion lit up the darkness, but it was not a large explosion. The Council ship barely slowed down. But it was human fire. It was humanity fighting back against the force that had destroyed their world. Cade was leading a fighter squadron. His small ship was faster than the Council fighters, and he used that speed to his advantage. He dodged through their formations, firing weapons they could not predict. When a Council fighter got too close, Cade used a tactic no one had taught him. He turned his ship toward the enemy and fired every weapon at once. The Council fighter exploded. Cade felt something new inside himself. The war beasts had been created with human emotions, and Cade was feeling something humans called glory. He was doing what he was meant to do. He was fighting. He was surviving. But all around the battle, Council ships kept coming. For every one that was destroyed, 2 more appeared. The humans were outnumbered 10 to 1, maybe more. They were losing ships. They were losing beasts. The Vanguard took 3 more direct hits. Lucas watched the battle unfold on his screens. He could see where the humans were strongest. He could see where the Council was pushing hardest. He could see the death happening all around him, the explosions, the ships breaking apart. But he could also see something the Council had not planned for. The humans were adapting. Where the Council attacked with overwhelming force, the humans retreated and reformed. Where the Council had gaps in their formations, the humans attacked. Every moment, the human soldiers were learning from what they faced. A Council captain had made a mistake. Lucas could see it clearly on the screens. The Council fleet had separated slightly, trying to surround the human position. But that separation had created a weakness. A human squadron led by Captain Sarah Mitchell had seen it too. All available beasts, Lucas commanded, converge on the Council's left flank. Break their formation. The human ships moved. Not like they were running away or trying to survive, but like they were part of something greater than themselves. They moved like soldiers who knew what they were doing. They moved like creatures that had been born to fight. 3 Council battleships tried to move into the gap. But human missiles were already there. Human fighters were already attacking. The battleships slowed, tried to defend, but the human assault did not stop. One of the battleships took damage it could not recover from. Its systems failed. It started to fall toward a nearby planet. A cheer went up through the Vanguard's bridge. The war beasts destroyed a Council battleship. They had proven that they could fight. They could hurt the enemy. They could win. But Lucas knew the truth that the celebrating beasts did not yet understand. They had won 1 battle. The war was just beginning. The Council would send more ships. They would send better tactics. They would not stop until every human was dead, or the humans found a way to stop them. Lucas looked at the screens and saw the future. It was bloody. It was terrible. But it was also the only future that mattered. Because humans had learned something 500,000 years ago. When the Council destroyed Earth, they had learned that mercy from an enemy was rare. The only way to survive was to fight God, and now they had the weapons to do it. The war beasts rose, and the galaxy would never be the same. Jennifer Wolf had learned to think like a war beast. It was not difficult. She had studied them for weeks before the battle, learning how their minds worked, what they could do, what their limits were. The limit turned out to be much further than anyone had expected. Jennifer was a tactical officer on the Vanguard, but her real job was simple. She was supposed to tell Cade what to do. Cade was a weapon, and weapons needed direction. The problem was that Cade was also intelligent. Cade could see things that Jennifer could not. Cade could make decisions that humans had never learned to make. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. The battle had moved from the open space near Earth to the region around a Council military station. The station was massive, a fortress built into an asteroid. It had shields that could withstand 1,000 missiles. It had weapons that could destroy 5 human ships in one volley. It was designed to be impossible to defeat. Jennifer Wolf was going to prove the Council wrong. Cade, she said through the communication system, I need you to take your squadron down to the station's weak point, northeast corner. There is a power conduit that connects to the main reactor. Copy that, Cade said. His voice was becoming clearer as the days passed. Soon the war beasts would sound almost human. What happens when we hit the power conduit? The shields fail for exactly 3 seconds, Jennifer said. That is when Commander Hayes and the main force will attack. Your job is to survive long enough to make the shot. Cade did not hesitate. Understood. Moving in, Cade's fighter squadron dove toward the station. The Council defense system opened fire immediately. Beams of energy crossed the darkness, trying to cut down the human fighters before they got close. 2 fighters exploded. 3 more were hit. But Cade kept moving forward, never slowing down, never changing his course. Jennifer watched on the screens, her hands moving across the tactical console. She could see the station's weapons tracking Cade. She could predict where they would fire next. She fed that information to Cade in real time. "Evasive left now," Jennifer said. Cade's fighter banked hard. A beam of energy passed where he had been just a moment before. "Accelerate forward and drop altitude," Jennifer said. Cade pushed his fighter faster. The fighter's engine screamed. The G-forces inside the cockpit became so strong that a human pilot would have lost consciousness. But Cade was not completely human anymore. His body could withstand things that would break a normal human. His mind could think faster in danger than humans could. The station's main weapons were trying to track him, but Cade was too fast and too erratic. He was not flying like a trained pilot. He was flying like a creature that had been born to move. He was flying on instinct and the raw speed of his engine. The northeast corner was coming up. Jennifer could see the power conduit on her screens. It was protected by a secondary shield, but it was the weakest point in the entire station's defense. "All fighters, launch on my mark," Jennifer said. 3, 2, 1, mark. 16 missiles launched from Cade's squadron. They streaked through space toward the power conduit. The station tried to stop them. The Council weapons fired and fired and fired. 8 missiles were destroyed. 4 more were damaged and fell away. But 4 missiles made it through. The explosions tore through the power conduit. The secondary shield failed. The main shield came down. For 3 seconds, the station was naked and vulnerable. Commander Lucas Hayes did not waste those 3 seconds. Every human ship in range opened fire. Missiles, energy weapons, everything they had. The first volley hit the station's armor and tore deep wounds in it. The second volley went through those wounds and struck the internal structure. Explosions bloomed inside the station. By the time the shields came back online, the damage was done. The station was crippled. Its weapons were offline. Its reactor was failing. It was no longer a fortress. It was a tomb. "All forces, cease fire," Commander Hayes ordered. "Stand down, weapons. Prepare boarding teams." The battle was over. The cost was terrible. 17 human ships had been destroyed. 33 war beasts were dead. Another 50 were wounded. But a Council military station had been taken. Humanity had proven that they could not only fight the Galactic Council, they could win against them. Jennifer left the tactical station and went down to the medical bay. Wounded beasts lay on surgical tables while human doctors tried to repair them. One of the war beasts was Corvus, a tall creature with skin the color of old stone. Corvus had been hit by a direct energy weapon blast. Half of his arm was burned away. Dr. Nathan Price was examining Corvus when Jennifer arrived. Nathan looked exhausted. He had not slept since the battle began. "Can you save him?" Jennifer asked. "The beast can regenerate," Nathan said. "His arm will grow back in a few weeks, but the pain will be significant." Jennifer looked at Corvus. The war beast's eyes were open and aware. He was not crying. War beasts did not cry, even though they were part human. They had been engineered to endure suffering beyond what humans could bear. "Why did we destroy the station?" Corvus asked Jennifer. His voice was thick and slow. "What was inside?" Jennifer hesitated. She had been trained not to give sensitive information to soldiers, even war beasts. But Corvus had just lost his arm fighting for humanity. He deserved an answer. The station was controlling 3,000 Council fighters, Jennifer said. It was also a weapons development facility. They were working on new ways to destroy us. Corvus closed his eyes. How many Council soldiers died? We do not know, Jennifer said. Maybe 50,000. Corvus did not speak again, but Jennifer could see something change in his face. The war beasts had been created to be killers, but they were still human inside. They felt the weight of death. They understood that killing, even killing enemies, had a cost. The victory celebrations began on the Vanguard. The crew drank and cheered. Commander Hayes gave speeches about courage and honor. Cade was promoted to captain and given command of his own fighter squadron. The humans believed they were winning. But Jennifer Wolf knew better. She had studied the Council's military strength. She had studied their tactics. And she knew that this station, important as it was only a small part of their total force. The Council had thousands more stations, millions more soldiers. And now they knew that humanity was a real threat. The war was about to get much worse. In the darkness of space, Council reinforcements were already moving. The Council had called an emergency session. Different alien species were arguing about how to respond. Some wanted to pull back, to declare humanity a threat that could not be negotiated with. Some wanted to send even more ships, to finish what they had started 500,000 years ago. The Draken, a reptilian species that had ruled the Council for 100,000 years, had a different idea. They wanted to understand the war beasts. They wanted to study them. They wanted to know if humanity had found a way to create something that could challenge the Council's military supremacy, that was more dangerous than hatred. That was curiosity. And the Draken would do anything to satisfy their curiosity. The humans did not know yet that the real war was about to begin. They thought they had made a difference. They thought they could win. And in a way, they were right. But winning would cost more than they could imagine. It would cost lives. It would cost innocence. It would cost the very thing that made them human. Cade stood on the deck of his new ship and looked out at the stars. He was a war beast. He had been created to kill. But as he watched the darkness of space, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, humans had found a way to create something that could choose not to kill. Something that could choose to spare lives instead of taking them. The galaxy did not know what was coming. The galaxy had never seen a war beast that could think like a human and fight like a beast. The galaxy had never fought an enemy that valued both strength and mercy. They were about to learn. The battle had lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of constant fighting. 6 weeks of ships being destroyed. 6 weeks of war beasts dying. Dr. Nathan Price stood in the archive room of a captured Council station. Around him were databases. Ancient databases that held the history of the Galactic Council going back 1 million years. He was reading the truth that had been hidden from humanity for 500,000 years. The destruction of Earth had not been an accident of war. It had been deliberate. The Council had not destroyed Earth because humans were a threat. The Council had destroyed Earth because humans were a promise. The ancient records showed it clearly. Human scientists had created technology that was advancing at a rate no other species had ever achieved. In 1,000 years, humanity would have rivaled the Council's military power. In 10,000 years, humans might have exceeded it. The Council had destroyed Earth out of fear. Not fear of humans attacking them, but fear that humans would become better than them. Nathan closed his eyes. He had awakened 5,000 war beasts. He had sent 5,000 soldiers to their deaths. 200,000 humans had been killed in 6 weeks of fighting. And now he was learning that the whole war could have been avoided if the Council had not been afraid of what humans might become. Communication came through from Captain Sarah Mitchell. Her voice was weak. She was broadcasting from a medical ship, recovering from wounds. "Nathan," she said, "we have a situation. One of the war beasts has refused a direct order." Nathan opened his eyes. This had never happened before. War beasts had been engineered to follow orders. They had been created to be soldiers. But they were also partly human, and humans could choose to disobey. "Which beast?" Nathan asked. "Corvus," Sarah said. "He destroyed a council supply ship, but when we ordered him to attack a transport vessel, he refused. He said there were civilians aboard." Nathan felt something twist inside his chest. Corvus was right. Council transport vessels carried civilians. The Draken, the Valorans, the other species of the Council, they had families. They had non-combatants. And Corvus had looked at those civilians and made a choice that no one had asked him to make. "Where is he now?" Nathan asked. "The brig," Sarah said. "He turned himself in rather than disobey again." Nathan left the archive room and made his way through the captured station. The brig was deep in the lower levels, guarded by human soldiers in armor. The guard let him through without question. Corvus was sitting in the cell with perfect stillness. His arm was not fully regenerated yet, just beginning to grow back, red and raw and painful. But his eyes were alert and aware. "Dr. Price," Corvus said. His voice was surprisingly calm. "I knew you would come." Nathan sat down across from Corvus, separated by the energy barrier of the cell. He had no authority to let Corvus out. No authority to override the order. He was just a scientist talking to a creature of war. "Why did you refuse the order?" Nathan asked. "Because it was wrong," Corvus said simply. "I am a war beast. I was created to fight. I was created to kill. But I was also created to think. And when I thought about destroying a transport full of Veloran civilians, I could not do it." "They are part of the enemy," Nathan said. "Are they?" Corvus asked. "Or are they just living creatures like I am? I have seen the Council's records. The Council decided to destroy Earth because they were afraid of what humans might become. Was that the civilians' decision? Did they vote to commit genocide?" Nathan could not answer. "I have been thinking about something," Corvus continued. "The Council created us because they feared us. Now we are killing them because we fear them. Is that not the same thing? When does the killing end, Dr. Price? When do we stop and ask if there is another way?" Nathan left the brig without speaking. He went to Commander Lucas Hayes. Hayes was recovering from a wound to his leg, but he was already back on the bridge of the Vanguard. The commander was a war beast, but he thought like a soldier. He thought in terms of victory and survival. "Corvus has to be executed," Hayes said immediately. "He disobeyed a direct order in combat. That is a capital offense." "He was right," Nathan said. "The order was wrong." "We are at war," Hayes said. "There is no right or wrong in war. There is only victory or defeat. Then we do not deserve to survive." Nathan said. The words hung in the air between them. Hayes stared at Nathan, and for a moment, something human flickered across the war beast's face. Doubt. Uncertainty. "You are the one who created us," Hayes said quietly. "You are the one who woke us up. You sent us out to kill. And now you question the killing?" "I made a mistake," Nathan said. "I thought we could win through strength. But Corvus is teaching me something. Maybe we can only win through something else. Through choosing to be better than our enemy." Hayes closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was no doubt left. There was only the weight of command. "I cannot release him," Hayes said. "But I can delay his execution. 14 days. If Corvus can convince the other war beasts not to question orders, if he can convince them that his way does not work, then I will consider clemency." Nathan nodded. He understood what Hayes was really saying. Hayes was giving Corvus a chance to prove that mercy was possible. That humanity could win not through killing more effectively, but through choosing not to kill. The next day, something unexpected happened. The council sent a message. They wanted to negotiate. A council delegation was sent to meet with human leaders. They arrived in a small ship, completely unarmed. The delegation included representatives from 5 different species. The leader was a draken named Vesh. Vesh was ancient, easily 300 years old, with scales that had turned gray with age. "We came to make an offer," Vesh said. He spoke in the human language, his mouth not quite shaped for the words, but understandable. "The Council is willing to divide the galaxy into territories. Humans can have this sector. We will leave you alone. We will not attack. In return, you must stop attacking us." It was peace. It was survival. It was everything humanity had fought for. Why? Captain Sarah Mitchell asked. "Why would the Council offer us peace now?" "Because you are different," Vesh said. "Because you have shown us something we thought was impossible. Your war beasts are part weapon and part living being. They are both strong and merciful. They can choose between violence and peace. We have never seen that before. The Council wanted to destroy you because we were afraid. Now we are afraid of something else. We are afraid of what will happen if the war continues. We are afraid of becoming like you. We are afraid of learning to make the same choices you are making." The war had lasted 9 weeks when the peace was offered. The humans accepted. Dr. Nathan Price visited Corvus in his cell on the day the ceasefire began. He opened the cell door himself. "You are free," Nathan said. Corvus stood slowly, carefully, favoring his wounded side. He looked at Nathan with eyes that held understanding far beyond what a creature only 9 weeks old should have possessed. "Compassion won," Corvus said. It was not a question. "For now," Nathan said. "For this war. But I do not know if it will win in the long term. I do not know if the galaxy will ever understand what we did here." "Then we must teach them," Corvus said. "We must show them that there is strength in choosing mercy, that there is victory in refusing to destroy everything." Corvus walked out of the cell and toward the observation window. He looked out at the Council ships, massive and distant, no longer attacking. He looked at the human ships, battered and scarred from weeks of fighting. "How many died?" he asked. 230,000 humans, Nathan said. 1 million Council soldiers and civilians. Corvus closed his eyes. The weight of those numbers was something no creature should have to bear. "We will remember them," Corvus said. "We will remember that the price of peace is the blood of those who came before. That is how we honor them. We do not let their deaths be for nothing. We do not go back to war." Nathan Price looked at the war beast and finally understood what they had truly created. Not a weapon, not a tool, but something new. Something that was both human and more than human. Something that had learned in 9 weeks what humans had taken thousands of years to understand. That compassion was not weakness. Compassion was the strongest force in the universe. The peace was supposed to last forever. It lasted 3 months. On the day the ceasefire broke, Captain Sarah Mitchell was leading a diplomatic mission to the Council's central station. The station was enormous, built around an ancient star and housing the headquarters of the Galactic Council. 100 worlds orbited this station. Billions of beings lived in its shadow. It was supposed to be the safest place in the galaxy. Sarah walked through the corridors beside Corvus, who had become the symbol of human council cooperation. The war beast's arm had fully regenerated. His body showed no scars, but his mind carried the weight of the war. The negotiation chamber was vast, with seats for representatives from 1,000 different species. The council was not united. Sarah had learned. The Draken wanted peace. The Valorans wanted peace. But the Krell, a military species that had conquered their way to power, wanted war. They wanted to finish what the Council had started. They wanted humanity erased from the galaxy. The Krell leader, Commander Zeth, stood as Sarah entered. Zeth was massive, with skin like polished metal and eyes that burned with controlled rage. "You have no place here," Zeth said. "Humans are not a council member species. You are conquered beings. You should be dead." "The peace treaty includes human participation in the council," Sarah said calmly. She had trained for this moment. She had prepared for every possible response. The treaty was signed by all major powers. "The treaty is invalid," Zeth said. He raised his hand, and alarms began to sound throughout the station. A wall exploded. Not from outside attack, but from inside. Krell soldiers poured through the opening, weapons firing. The chamber became chaos. Representatives of 1,000 species tried to run. Guards tried to restore order. And in the confusion, Sarah understood what had happened. The Krell had seized the station. They had overthrown the council. Corvus moved with the kind of speed that should have been impossible. He placed his body between Sarah and the Krell fire. Weapons hit his chest and arms and legs. His body could absorb damage that would kill anything else, but even his regeneration had limits. "Run," Corvus said through pain and blood and the sound of weapons. "Go, warn the others. The Krell have taken the council." Sarah ran. She was human, fragile, vulnerable. But humans were made for running in crisis. She moved through the station, through corridors she had studied for weeks, toward the communication chamber. Behind her, Corvus held the Krell soldiers. He did not kill them. Even now, wounded and dying, he did not kill them. He only stopped them. He only prevented them from following. Sarah reached the communication chamber and broadcast an emergency signal. Across the galaxy, human ships heard the message. The Krell had taken the council. The peace was ending. Humanity was under attack again, but something unexpected happened. The Valorans responded. The Draken responded. The Centauri responded. Species that had fought against humanity came to humanity's defense, because Corvus had taught them something. He had shown them that peace was possible, that different beings could choose to trust each other. Commander Lucas Hayes was already moving his fleet toward the council station when the broadcast came in. He had not trusted the peace completely. He had kept his ships ready. Now he accelerated toward the center of the galaxy at speeds that pushed his ships to the limit. He was not alone. A Draken fleet followed. Valoran warships moved at his side. The Centauri brought their mighty battleships. The galaxy was uniting, not because any single power was forcing them together, but because they had seen what Corvus had shown them. They had seen that cooperation was possible. The Krell had made a strategic error. They had believed that the Council was weak, that they could seize power through military force alone. But the Council had made a discovery in the past 3 months. Military power was less important than allegiance. The Council held power because 1,000 species believed in it, trusted it, supported it. The Krell had only military force. The battle around the central station was the largest the galaxy had ever seen. 50,000 ships engaged in combat. Millions of soldiers fighting in the vast structures of the station. The Krell were strong, but they were alone. Inside the station, Corvus was dying. The Krell soldiers had overwhelmed him. They had used weapons designed specifically to hurt creatures like him, weapons that disrupted his regeneration. His body was failing. His mind was becoming hazy. He could barely think, but Atlas was coming. Atlas was the largest war beast, nearly 3.5 meters tall, with skin the color of midnight and strength that surpassed all others. Atlas had spent the 3 months of peace studying the enemy. Atlas understood the Krell better than any human. Atlas knew exactly what they feared and exactly how to stop them. When Atlas arrived at the communication chamber, Corvus was barely alive. Atlas picked him up with one massive hand, cradling the smaller war beast like it was something precious. "Hold," Atlas said, his voice like an earthquake. "Help is coming." Corvus smiled through the pain. "The Krell," he managed to say. "They have a weapon. A doomsday device. On the other side of the station. They are going to use it." Atlas's eyes went wide. He knew what Corvus meant. The Krell had been working on a weapon that could destroy entire sectors of the galaxy. A weapon so terrible that even the Council feared it. If the Krell activated that weapon, millions would die. Worlds would burn. Atlas was at a decision point. He could save Corvus. He could get medical help. Or he could go to the weapon. He could not do both. Corvus was dying, and Atlas was being asked to choose between his friend and billions of strangers. Atlas set Corvus down carefully. He called the human medics through the communication system. Then he turned and ran toward the doomsday device. The Krell had activated it. The countdown had begun. Atlas had 10 minutes. The weapon was on the far side of the station, in a chamber built into the ancient star itself. Atlas ran. His massive body moved with terrible speed. Walls that had stood for 1,000,000 years cracked under his feet. The Krell soldiers guarding the weapon tried to stop him. They fired everything they had. Atlas felt the weapons burning him, tearing at his flesh. His regeneration was already overwhelmed, already struggling to keep up. But he kept moving. He kept running. The weapon chamber was a vast empty space, with a reactor in the center that was beginning to tear open. The countdown showed 90 seconds. The Krell commander was there, the one controlling the activation. Commander Zeth smiled when he saw Atlas. "You are too late," Zeth said. "In 90 seconds, your entire species will be erased from this galaxy. In 180 seconds, your allies will follow." Atlas did not speak. Atlas was not a creature of words. Atlas was a creature of action. He covered the distance between himself and the reactor in 2 seconds. He reached out with his massive hands and grabbed the reactor. The energy inside burned him. It burned through his skin, through his muscles, through his bones. It burned the human part of him and the beast part of him, burning away everything he was, everything he had ever been. But Atlas held on. He held the reactor together. He stopped it from tearing open. He prevented the doomsday device from activating. And in the process, Atlas became the device. His body absorbed the energy, became the container for the weapon's power. He became a bomb. A terrible, living bomb. And he was choosing to destroy himself before the Krell could destroy the galaxy. With the last strength he had, Atlas turned to face Zeth. "Humans are weak," Zeth had said many times. "Humans can be destroyed." Atlas wanted to tell him the truth. He wanted to explain that humans were not weak. That the strongest thing humans ever did was choose to sacrifice themselves for others. That the greatest human act was choosing mercy, when you had the power to choose death. But Atlas did not have the strength to speak. Instead, he turned and walked toward the section of the station filled with human soldiers. And then he let go. He let the power inside him explode. The explosion was contained within the station, but barely. It destroyed the Krell command center. It killed the Krell soldiers in that section. And it killed Atlas. When the smoke cleared, the doomsday device was gone. Its power was neutralized. The galaxy was saved. And a war beast named Atlas had given his life to do it. 3 months later, humanity was accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council. Dr. Nathan Price stood in the new council chamber, watching as the vote was completed. Unanimous. Every species voting to accept humanity as an equal member. The Krell had been conquered. Their fleet was destroyed. Their command structure was dismantled. Corvus was still recovering. His wounds were deep, and his regeneration was slow. But he had survived. He was being called a hero across the galaxy. War beasts were no longer seen as weapons. They were seen as beings. Thinking, feeling beings that had chosen mercy over destruction. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood beside Nathan. She was older now, tired from the months of negotiations. But she was smiling. What would you do differently? She asked Nathan. If you could go back, if you could choose again, would you awaken the war beasts? Nathan thought about that question for a long time. He thought about the 200,000 humans who had died. He thought about the million council soldiers who had died. He thought about Corvus and his journey from weapon to being. He thought about Atlas and the sacrifice that had saved the galaxy.